this time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
And to the inaugural address of the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on the 20th of January, which will now take place in that region. Well, for a look ahead of the inauguration, which will now take place indoors due to dangerously cold weather being forecast for next week in Washington. The address, as well as other speeches, will now take place inside the U.S. Capitol's rotunda rather than outside the building. The inaugural parade will also be held indoors at Washington's Capitol One Arena, about 1 mile away from the rotunda along the 3 inaugural balls. The last president to be sworn in indoors was Ronald Reagan in 1985, when cold weather also plagued the U.S. Capitol. In a statement posted to his Truth social media platform, Donald Trump said that he does not want to see anyone hurt or injured in any way amid the freezing temperatures. He also added that it will be a dangerous weather condition for thousands of law enforcement agencies, first responders, police forces, as well as thousands of supporters expected to witness the occasion. Mr. Trump advised anyone who decides to come to the event to dress warmly. On the other hand, U.S. media report says raids to detain and deport migrants living in the U.S. without permission will begin on the first day of the Trump administration. The operations could reportedly begin in Chicago, a city with a large migrant population, as early as Tuesday. The U.S. president-elect says he will oversee the largest deportation program in the U.S. history. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency deports illegal migrants steadily. However, the operation is expected to be launched after Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday, and it is expected to, target, in quotes, sanctuary cities that limit cooperation with federal immigration officials. For a look ahead of the inauguration of the U.S. president-elect and his immigration policy, I'm being joined from Boston in the United States by an immigration lawyer, Andrew Thomas. It's good to have you join us on the wall now.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Right. We've seen Donald Trump's rhetoric around immigration, which some have described as harsh. But what are we likely to expect, and who are those likely to be affected by these proposed changes?
Well, I wouldn't want to echo who are those that will be affected. But definitely, Mr. Trump has made it clear that from day one, he's going to start executing policy to deport undocumented immigrants. It's one thing to announce policy, it's a different ballgame to execute it. But what is clear that very early in his administration, he's going to try to do what he says he's going to do through executive orders. And from feelers coming from his close associates, he's planning to sign many executive orders on immigration. And the Congress and the Senate are about to pass a law that would give broad powers to detain anybody suspected to be undocumented, even for reasons as shoplifting. The Laken Riley Act, named after a young woman who was killed in February 2024, appears to be the very first legislation that is going to give broad powers to federal agencies to go after people who are not documented for even reasons as flimsy as shoplifting, because law enforcement requires judicial allocation of resources to more serious crimes. But in this case, because the perpetrator of that murder was previously arrested for shoplifting, it is in this new act that if you shoplift, you're not documented, you're on your way out of the United States.
Andrew, President Joe Biden this week also, granted an extension of special immigration protection status to, nearly 1 million immigrants as one of his final acts in office. In terms of continuity, this may mean that Mr. Trump may have to wait until 2026 when some of this country's status expires before they can deport them. Does this seem like a last-minute attempt to destabilize the incoming administration?
Well, you won't call it stabilization, because even as far back as the administration of President Barack Obama, provision was made for citizens, especially young children who came here with their parents undocumented. Those protections are necessary because America is home to anybody who knocks. It's a long-held policy that if you show up at the borders of the United States, you should have refuge. That's how many people migrated here. Not to say that anybody can come to the United States illegally, but if they find themselves here, there should be protections. Mr. Trump might decide to reverse it, but as he tried to do with DACA for undocumented children, which was reversed during his first term, I'm sure there will be a lot of fireworks in the court so he doesn't overrule, because there are millions of people who benefit from these protections, especially people who live in countries that are unstable as we speak.
I mean, there are also concerns about, Trump's policies and perhaps some limits on legal migration. Trump and many of his allies have also accused immigrants of, lowering wages and taking jobs from native-born Americans. Some even say they have added to inflation in that sense. But does it seem like the U.S. is ready for Trump's mass deportation plan, considering that immigrants add about a total of $2.2 trillion to the U.S. economy yearly?
Well, that is not entirely true that immigrants lower wages. There are many jobs that Americans would not touch. There are many jobs that are barely minimum wage. And who are the people willing to take those jobs? For example, picking produce under very severe weather for minimum wage. Americans won't touch jobs like that. Only immigrants do that. So, and even when we go to skilled visa categories like H-1B, you need a certain level of qualification and you need a certain level of guarantees of minimum wage you can pay, which is called prevailing wage. So there's no truth in it that if you are undocumented, automatically you lower wages. On the contrary, there are some jobs that are naturally low-paying jobs that the American would not take. Undocumented people and immigrants would gladly take those jobs because it looks better than where they are coming from. So in a way, that unemployment gap or that gap in filling certain positions, immigrants fill up that position. And I think it's a plus. That's what makes America strong. America was built on the backs of people who were paid below minimum wage over centuries. And it's still the same. And for you to say that you don't appreciate those people, I think it's not fair, because everybody deserves a chance at the best in life,
And the inauguration day is just, a few days away, and there are speculations as to what's going to happen that day. But anyways, thank you for joining us on The World Now, immigration lawyer Andrew Thomas.
Thank you.
That's it on The World Now. For more updates on the stories and monitoring, you can visit our website on www.tvcnews.com.